On a day as ordinary as any other, the tranquility of the Middle East was shattered by an unexpected attack. Out of the blue, Iran launched a surprise assault on Israel, a move that would forever alter the dynamics of the region. The skies over Israel, typically a picture of calmness, were suddenly filled with the ominous hum of Iranian missiles. This was no mere border skirmish or a sporadic exchange of fire. It was a full-scale, premeditated attack that sent shockwaves through the region and beyond. The damage was considerable, with infrastructural destruction and a significant number of casualties. Across the region, the shock was palpable. The usual hustle and bustle of life came to a grinding halt as people grappled with the reality of what had just happened. The fear was tangible, a chilling reminder of the region's volatile past and the potential for further escalation. In Israel, the scenes were heartrending. Streets that were once bustling with life were now deserted, save for the wailing sirens and the echoes of explosions. People scrambled for cover, their lives upended in an instant. The surprise nature of the attack left little room for preparation, and the consequence was a country left reeling. In the immediate aftermath, the numbers were telling. The casualty count rose steadily, a grim testament to the sheer force of the Iranian onslaught. The shock of the attack was quickly replaced by a grim determination, a resolve to weather the storm and stand strong in the face of adversity. Meanwhile, in Iran, the launch of the attack was met with an eerie silence. The government, usually vocal about its military activities, offered no immediate explanation for the assault. The international community braced itself for what seemed to be the impending chaos. The day had ended, but the nightmare had only just begun. Israel, still reeling from the shock of the attack, was quick to respond. The nation was spurred into immediate action, guided by a resolve to protect its people and sovereignty. The first step was a resounding declaration of a state of war, a critical move that set the stage for the actions that were to follow. This was not a decision taken lightly, but in the face of an unexpected and deadly attack, it was deemed necessary. With the declaration, Israel tightened its grip on Gaza, imposing a complete and comprehensive siege. This was a strategic move, aimed at cutting off resources and isolating the militant group responsible for the attack. The siege served a dual purpose. It was a show of strength and a practical step towards weakening the enemy. While military strategies were being put into place, the Israeli government was acutely aware of the civilian population caught in the crossfire. Warnings were issued promptly, advising civilians to evacuate certain areas that were likely to become battlegrounds. This was an attempt to minimize civilian casualties, a grim but necessary aspect of warfare. But the Israeli response wasn't just defensive. Preparations were underway for a potential ground invasion. The Israeli forces, known for their discipline and prowess, started amassing near the border. Their mission was clear: to neutralize the threat and restore peace and security. The urban environment of Gaza presented its own challenges, with the potential for guerrilla warfare tactics by the enemy and concerns about preserving civilian safety. The response from Israel was swift and decisive. It was a display of a nation's determination to protect its people, to defend its borders, and to uphold its right to exist. The message was loud and clear to those watching from around the world and to the enemy itself. Israel had made it clear they would not stand idly by. As tensions rose, so did the stakes. The conflict was not confined to a single front. It was like a wildfire spreading rapidly, engulfing everything in its path. Attacks were launching from multiple borders, stretching the already taut tension to a breaking point. To the north, Hezbollah, the Lebanese militant group, was causing havoc, adding another layer of complexity to the escalating situation. But the southern border was not quiet either. Essential supplies entering Gaza through Egypt were being targeted, a move that was not just military but strategic as well. The objective was clear: to choke off resources, to weaken the enemy from within. This was a siege, not just a battle. As the conflict intensified, it wasn't just the immediate combatants who were feeling the heat. The potential for the conflict to spiral out of control was all too real. The Middle East was a web of alliances and rivalries, and a clash of this magnitude had the potential to draw in neighboring countries. The situation was like a set of dominoes, all lined up and ready to fall. If one piece tumbled, it could set off a chain reaction, leading to a multi-front conflict involving Iran and its proxies. It was a scenario that had been played out in war games and strategic analyses, but now it was a tangible possibility. In the midst of this, the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group to the Mediterranean was seen as a clear signal. The international community was ready to engage if necessary. It was a message, not just to the immediate players in the conflict, but to the entire region, a warning that the world was watching and would not stand by if things spiraled out of control. The region was on a knife edge, teetering on the brink of a full-blown war. The stakes were high, the consequences potentially catastrophic. The question was, would diplomacy prevail, or would the drumbeats of war drown out the voices of reason? Only time would tell. The world watched in horror and concern as the conflict escalated. As the tension between Israel and its adversaries intensified, international powers began to take notice. The United States, a long-standing ally of Israel, was quick to respond. The American response was more than just words of support and condemnation of the attacks. It was a show of military might and readiness to engage if necessary. The deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group to the Mediterranean was a pivotal moment in the international response to the crisis. This was not a subtle gesture. The Gerald R. Ford is a titan of the seas, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier capable of launching a significant offensive or defensive operation. The presence of this formidable vessel in the region was a clear signal to all parties involved. The United States was closely watching the unfolding events and stood ready to protect its interests and allies. But the United States was not alone in its concern. The international community at large was deeply disturbed by the escalation of violence. Calls for a ceasefire echoed around the globe, from the chambers of the United Nations to the streets of cities far removed from the conflict. Humanitarian organizations worked tirelessly to provide aid to those affected, while diplomats labored behind the scenes to broker peace. This conflict was not confined to the borders of the countries directly involved. It had transcended geographical boundaries, pulling in nations from all corners of the globe. The world was on edge, awaiting the next move, the next escalation, or hopefully the first signs of de-escalation. This was more than a regional conflict, it was a global crisis. The world had been drawn into the conflict with uncertain consequences. In the wake of the conflict, a region was left scarred and a world left wondering, what next? The aftermath of the conflict was a landscape of devastation. The rubble of once bustling neighborhoods, the eerie silence replacing the vibrant hum of life. Over 1,000 lives lost in the Palestinian territories, with countless more injured. Families shattered, dreams extinguished. The physical scars were evident, but the emotional toll was immeasurable. The trauma of loss, the fear of what might come next, the uncertainty of the future. These were the unseen wounds that would take much longer to heal. The conflict also had far-reaching implications. The region was left on a knife's edge, the tension palpable. The potential for future conflicts was all too real. The surprise attack by Hamas, the swift and heavy-handed response by Israel, the escalation into a full-blown regional conflict, these were indicators of an underlying instability that could erupt at any moment. The world watched with bated breath as the echoes of the bombing resonated across the globe. The international community was left to grapple with the complexities of the situation. The role of the U.S., the involvement of Iran and its proxies, the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group. These were all factors that contributed to a geopolitical puzzle of immense proportions. The aftermath also raised questions about the long-term consequences of the conflict. The siege on Gaza, the potential guerrilla warfare tactics, the concerns about civilian safety. These were issues that could have lasting implications on the region and beyond. And so, as the dust settled, the world was left to reflect on the events that had unfolded. The bombing was not just an act of aggression, it was a stark reminder of the fragile peace that exists in the region. It was a wake-up call to the international community, a call to action to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. The echoes of the bombing still resonate, a chilling reminder of a day that changed the course of history,